In 1988, ABC was in serious trouble. They had 8 of the 10 lowest-rated programs on television. They were hemorrhaging viewers, losing 7% in a single year. They needed a savior, fast. The one they got was not at all who they expected. Roseanne became the #1 program in America, and in the process redefined what working-class television could be. It was ABC's biggest relief. But it was also its biggest pain. Behind the scenes, the show was a war zone, national scandals, disrespect, power struggles, and creative battles that nearly killed the biggest show on television on multiple occasions, and eventually did. This is the rise and fall of Roseanne. Before we start, give this video a like if you watched Roseanne back in the day, and subscribe for more retro TV deep dives. Let's go back to 1987, when ABC was in full-blown crisis mode. They'd been in a downward spiral since 1984. Dynasty was fading. Their sitcom slate was a graveyard. Sledgehammer and the Charmings were dead last multiple weeks. Max Headroom became one of the lowest-rated series in ABC's history. Buck James was literally the lowest-rated program on air. Friday nights were a revolving door of failed sitcoms like The Pursuit of Happiness and I Married Dora. NBC was dominating with The Cosby Show and Cheers. CBS had solid dramas. ABC had, well, not much. But 2 legendary producers were about to change everything. Enter Marcy Carsey and Tom Werner, the masterminds behind The Cosby Show. They'd left NBC to form Carsey-Werner Productions, and now they wanted to do something radical, create a show about a family that wasn't upper middle class, like the Huxtables. They wanted real working-class people, blue-collar grit, financial stress, sarcasm instead of sentimentality. They'd seen Roseanne Barr on The Tonight Show and Entertainment Tonight doing her domestic goddess stand-up routine. She joked about her terrible kids, her exhausting life, and her complete lack of patience for anyone's nonsense. Werner later said, "We saw a voice that wasn't being represented on television." Carsey and Werner hired writer Matt Williams to develop the concept around Barr's real life. A plastics factory worker in Illinois, raising 3 kids with her husband Dan, barely scraping by. ABC jumped at it immediately. Then came casting. For the role of Dan Connor, Roseanne's husband, they wanted someone who could ground the chaos. John Goodman was a respected theater and film actor, but relatively unknown on TV. When Goodman walked into the room for his audition, he looked at Roseanne and said, "Scoot over." She snapped back, "Shut up!" He plopped down next to her. Matt Williams later said, "It was like they had been married for 16 years. For the kids, they cast Lacey Goranson as Becky, Sarah Gilbert as Darlene, and Michael Fishman as DJ. Laurie Metcalf, a brilliant stage actress from Chicago's Steppenwolf Theater, was cast as Jackie, Roseanne's neurotic single sister. Roseanne premiered on October 18, 1988, in a coveted Tuesday night slot at 8:30 p.m. And from the very first episode, Roseanne felt different. The Connor house was messy. The kitchen table was covered in bills. The jokes weren't about misunderstandings or wacky neighbors. They were about being broke, being exhausted, and being one bad month away from disaster. When Darlene asked for money for a school trip, Roseanne didn't deliver a heartwarming speech about family. She said, "We don't have it." That was it. That was the whole joke. And it wasn't even a joke, it was just reality. That was the beauty of the show. It didn't shy away from real problems. Roseanne and Dan fought about money, they fought about sex, they fought about who was going to pick up the kids. These were the kind of fights real couples have when they're stressed, tired, and scared. But the show also had warmth. Roseanne and Dan loved each other, the kids were sarcastic, but they showed up for each other. Jackie was a mess, but she was family, and America identified with it instantly. The premiere was watched by 21.4 million households, the highest-rated debut of that season. The New York Times praised the show for portraying working-class life without condescension. The Hollywood Reporter called it a groundbreaking depiction of the American family. In December 1988, just 2 months after the premiere, Roseanne hit #1 in the ratings, beating out The Cosby Show. ABC was thrilled. They finally had a hit, but behind the scenes, the fireworks had already begun. When the cast and crew gathered to watch the pilot air live, Roseanne Barr exploded with rage. The credits read, "Created by Matt Williams." Barr stood up and walked out of the party. Later, she screamed at Williams in front of the entire cast. "We built the show around my actual life and my kids," she shouted. "The domestic goddess, the whole thing, that's mine." Williams and the producers tried to explain. The Writers Guild determines creator credits. It's standard. Only the person who writes the pilot gets creator credit. Barr didn't care. She felt betrayed. And she was about to make everyone's life hell until she got what she wanted. During the first season, Barr started refusing to say certain lines. She'd lock herself in her dressing room. She'd walk off set mid-scene. She'd argue with Williams about every creative decision. The tension became unbearable. George Clooney, who had a recurring role as Jackie's boyfriend Booker, witnessed the chaos. When Barr was threatened with firing, Clooney reportedly put a sign on her dressing room door. It said, "Valerie Harper," the actress who'd just been fired from her own sitcom, Valerie. According to crew accounts, it was Clooney's way of reminding the network, you can't fire the star. But the fights with Williams got worse. Finally, in December 1988, just 13 episodes into the season, Barr issued an ultimatum. Either Matt Williams leaves or I do. ABC had a choice, lose the creator of the show or lose the star. But here's the thing, Roseanne was a hit. The network was finally clawing its way out of its ratings funk. They needed Roseanne more than they needed Matt Williams. So after episode 13, Williams was gone. And with that victory, Roseanne learned a crucial lesson. She had all the power. By the end of season 1, Roseanne finished in second place in the Nielsen ratings with a 23.8 household rating. The show became ABC's anchor for Tuesday nights. They built their entire comedy lineup around it. And then, in season 2, Roseanne became the #1 show in America. It beat The Cosby Show by 200,000 viewers. It dominated Tuesday nights with a 23.1 household rating. It became the most watched television program in the United States from 1989 to 1990. But as the show continued to dominate, the on-set friction kept rising. During season 2, Roseanne hired Tom Arnold as a writer. And in January 1990, she married him just 4 days after divorcing her husband, Bill Pentland. The other writers were horrified. According to the book Stealing the Show, writer Norma Safford Vela was told by a producer to teach Arnold how to write. She later said, "We all thought he was 100% talent-free." Arnold reportedly caused chaos on set, constantly going against other writers, including executive producer Jeff Harris. At one point, Harris tried to fire Arnold. Arnold went straight to Roseanne, who, by the way, had changed her last name to Arnold, so I'm now just going to refer to her by her first name to keep things straight. Anyway, according to Stealing the Show, Arnold then told Harris, "This is not an effing democracy. This is a queendom," referring to Roseanne. The writers were furious. The set was toxic. And in February 1990, Jeff Harris quit. He took out a full-page ad in Variety announcing his departure. The ad said he was taking a vacation in the relative peace and quiet of Beirut. That's how bad it was. Jay Daniel was brought in to replace Harris, but the turnover didn't stop. Roseanne went through showrunners almost annually. After Daniel came Bob Meyer, then Bruce Helford and Bruce Rasmussen, then Rob Yulin. The Arnolds openly said in interviews that they believed it was necessary to keep bringing in new writers to maintain the show's quality. Translation? If you didn't do exactly what Roseanne wanted, you were gone. Now, this was all behind the scenes. From what the public saw, there was nothing to turn them off of the show. Well, that was until July 1990, one of the most infamous moments in television history. ABC thought it would be fun to have Roseanne sing the national anthem at a San Diego Padres game. Tom Werner, one of the show's producers, was part owner of the team. It seemed like a cute promotional tie-in. What happened instead became a national scandal. Roseanne walked onto the field, grabbed the microphone, and screeched her way through the Star-Spangled Banner in a deliberately off-key mocking tone. When the crowd booed, she grabbed her crotch and spit on the ground. The backlash was instantaneous. President George H.W. Bush called her performance disgraceful. Sports Illustrated wrote a scathing editorial. Angry callers flooded ABC switchboards demanding the show be canceled. Conservative groups organized boycotts. ABC panicked. This was their biggest star, and she just humiliated herself and the network on national television. Roseanne later claimed it was meant to be a parody of what baseball players do, spitting and adjusting themselves. The public didn't care. For weeks, she was the most hated woman in America. Yet, when season 3 premiered just a few months later, it was still the #2 show on television. If this moment proved anything, it was that Roseanne was untouchable. The conflicts continued, but throughout it all, the cast were professional. John Goodman and Laurie Metcalf kept their heads down and did their jobs. But the younger cast members felt the tension. Sarah Gilbert later said the set could be difficult, but remained diplomatic about specifics. In 1993, Variety reported that Roseanne had a new system for managing her writers. She handed out T-shirts with numbers for each of the 19 staffers. Some felt reduced to a number, while producers insisted it was meant as a quirky gesture. But when you've got a show in the top 10, who's going to stop her? And she continued to pull rank against the network. In 1994, Roseanne pitched an episode called Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The plot? Roseanne and Jackie go to a gay bar, and Roseanne is kissed by a woman played by Mariel Hemingway. It would be one of the first same-sex kisses on network television. ABC executives were terrified. They didn't want to air it. Sponsors threatened to pull out. Local affiliates across the country said they'd refuse to broadcast the episode. Roseanne didn't blink. She told ABC, "If you don't air this episode, I'm taking the show to another network." Tom Arnold backed her up. They said they'd buy the episode back themselves and put it on HBO if ABC refused. You guessed it. ABC caved. They moved the episode from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., slapped a parental advisory warning on it, and let it air. Several local affiliates still refused to broadcast it. ABC risked losing $1 million in ad revenue, but the episode aired. And it was seen by 20 million viewers. Roseanne had won again. But this power dynamic, Roseanne threatening to walk, ABC scrambling to keep her, was becoming a pattern, and it was exhausting for everyone involved. Bob Iger, who ran ABC during Roseanne's original run, later admitted being in business with Roseanne meant regularly clashing with her. And eventually, the chaos would catch up to her. Flash forward to the end of season 8. In May 1996, Roseanne aired an episode called The Wedding. Darlene and David got married. During the reception, Dan Connor, the heart of the show, suffered a massive heart attack. In the next episode, Heart and Soul, Dan was rushed to the hospital. DJ performed CPR and saved his life. The family gathered around him, terrified. Dan survived, barely. In the season finale, Fights and Stuff, Dan was put on a strict diet by Roseanne. He tried to sneak unhealthy food. She caught him. They had a massive, brutal fight. The kind of fight where every buried resentment came to the surface. They screamed at each other about money, about parenting, about their weight, about everything. Dan threw things. Roseanne broke the TV. She told him, "You can die if you want to, Dan, but you're going to have to do it alone because I'm not going to sit here and watch you." Then she walked out. It was devastating. It was raw. It was real. And it set up what should have been season 9. Dan recovering. The family dealing with the fallout, the Connors struggling to rebuild. But instead, Roseanne made a creative decision that would nearly destroy the show's legacy. At the start of season 9, the Connors won $108 million in the Illinois State Lottery. Suddenly, all their financial struggles disappeared. Roseanne was going to fancy spas. Jackie married a prince from Moldavia. The family met celebrities and lived in luxury. It made no sense. The entire appeal of Roseanne was that the family was working class. They were broke. They were stressed. They were us. Now they were rich, and the show stopped being relatable. Roseanne later explained her reasoning. "My character's life had always been based on my real life, and I was rich now, so it made sense for the Connors to be rich too." But it didn't make sense to anyone else. John Goodman was barely in season 9. He appeared in only 12 out of 24 episodes. Without Dan anchoring the marriage, the show's center of gravity shifted from working-class authenticity to celebrity spectacle. The show that had been built on Roseanne and Dan's marriage was now a fantasy about lottery tickets and celebrity cameos. One particularly infamous episode featured Roseanne rescuing a Hillary Clinton look-alike in a parody action spoof. It was absurd, and the ratings collapsed. Season 9 dropped to 35th place, the first time Roseanne had fallen out of the top 20 in its entire run. Critics called it a betrayal. Fans felt alienated. The show that had spoken for working-class America was now a fantasy about winning the lottery and hanging out with celebrities. The season limped to its finale on May 20th, 1997. And then, Roseanne pulled one final twist. In the series finale, it's revealed that almost everything from season 9 and parts of earlier seasons was fiction. Roseanne had been writing a book. The lottery win never happened. The fancy trips never happened. Jackie didn't marry a prince. And the biggest, most devastating reveal: Dan had died from his heart attack at the end of season 8. Roseanne had been writing him alive because she couldn't bear to let him go. The entire 9th season, all the absurdity, all the weirdness, was Roseanne's way of coping with grief. She'd retreated into fantasy because reality was too painful. It was heartbreaking. It was brilliant. And it almost redeemed the disaster of season 9. The finale was watched by 16 million viewers. Solid, but nowhere near the show's peak. But here's the thing. Even with the season 9 disaster, even with all the chaos and fights and controversies, Roseanne left a massive legacy. John Goodman became one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, starring in The Big Lebowski, Monsters, Inc., and dozens of prestige films. He also stars in my guilty pleasure, The Righteous Gemstones, which is filmed where I live, and I regret not taking that temp job working on the set. Anyway, Sarah Gilbert became a daytime TV star, co-hosting and producing The Talk for nearly a decade. Laurie Metcalf won multiple Tony Awards for her stage work and earned an Oscar nomination for Lady Bird in 2018. And Roseanne, well, she continued to be controversial. In 2018, ABC revived Roseanne. The first episode drew 18 million viewers, the #1 show on television. ABC's entire Tuesday lineup benefited. It looked like lightning had struck twice, but within 2 months, Roseanne tweeted about former Obama advisor Valerie Jarrett, comparing her to Planet of the Apes. ABC canceled the show within hours. This time, there was no negotiation, no second chance. Roseanne was fired, and ABC retooled the show as The Connors, killing off her character and continuing without her. It was a brutal end. Roseanne, in a new era, had finally gone too far with an ABC that wasn't afraid of its star. Still, Roseanne's genius and the original show's influence is undeniable. Critics point to Malcolm in the Middle, Shameless, Fresh Off the Boat, and Blackish as part of the lineage Roseanne started. Authentic family sitcoms about financially struggling households that didn't sanitize reality. The creators of The Middle, Eileen Heisler and Deanne Helene, both Roseanne writers, explicitly confirm the connection. Helene stated, "The Middle's roots are Roseanne for sure," praising its depiction of the dignity of people trying hard. Matt Williams, Roseanne's creator, later said, "I don't think you would have Mike and Molly without Dan and Roseanne." Lauren Bouchard, creator of Bob's Burgers, cited representing working-class people with creative urges as his goal, an ethos directly from Roseanne's playbook. It was the show about family chaos, with even more chaos behind the scenes that changed television as we know it.